Welcome to Markets Today. I'm your host, Mbithe Mwema. Today is Monday, 21st of September, and I will be giving you an overview of what happened last week on the NSE and what to expect for the coming week. Let's start off by looking at the indices. You have a downward trajectory in terms of the index performance over the week. What did we see? Safaricom traded slightly over 30 shillings per share. Then it settled at 30 shillings per share towards the end of the week. That is really explained by the downward trajectory through the NSE 20 share index and the next slide, which is the NSE 25 share index, as well as the next slide, which is the NASI, that's the Nairobi, or that's the NSE all share index as well, downward trajectory. On turnover, we had a spike on Thursday, 3.8 billion. But this was 452 million is the amount that was traded on Friday. There was a huge jump downwards, 87% jump. There's a bit of a lag on our data, but the jump was apparent for the NSE, 87% downward decline on turnover, and the market closed at 452 million. Expected, Mondays and Fridays tend to be very slow unless there is a position that one of the traders are working on. Let's take a look at the next slide and see what was happening towards the end of the week. So Safaricom there was also the dominant trader on the day. 5.8 million shares were traded at 30 shilling mark. Uchumi Supermarkets, a bit of activity. 3.6 is the largest we've seen over the last 1 month. The last big trade we saw was 1 million shares, and it's still trading at 0.3 shillings per share. We haven't had anything significant or material, but we are still questioning what is happening on Uchumi, because the last public news was the fact that this retailer needed to pay its suppliers 4.7 billion before the year end. It could be that either there could be a savior who's coming on board with slightly more than that, which could be pushing a bit of speculative activity, but nothing has been confirmed that. We'll keep questioning, and once we get a confirmed response, you will be the first to know. Equity Group as well as Bank of Kigali Group were also top trades there in the banking sector. Kenya Power, 1 million shares traded at the 1.85 shillings per share. Let's take a look at what was happening on price performance on Friday. Homes Africa was the top gainer for the day, up 5 percentage points. Then East African Breweries was a key gainer as well, 168. We will be discussing the thesis for this from an investment perspective once we go into the break to give you a sense of whether they're still upside or not. Nation Media, a bit of recovery, 15.75. Again, it's a point that you want to be taking profit, and we expect a bit of downward price movement in the coming week. Let's take a look at the next slide. That's the top losers. Bank of Kigali Group, again, down 10 percentage points to 13.5. Stanbic Bank as well, down 6.25 percentage points to 75 shillings. Uchumi was also down there, 3 percentage points to 0.3. Kenya Power closed the week at 1.81%. Looking at the week's performance, some of the key trades that we saw are Safaricom. I have already touched on that. But did you know that today the East African community only holds 4% of this counter? This is outside of the percentage that's held by the government of Kenya. In other words, you and I only make up 4 percentage points of the ownership of Safaricom. Conversely, you and I make up 100% of the revenue that Safaricom earns. So there's a bit of a misdemeanor here. You are consuming a lot of Safaricom in terms of either your M-Pesa, your data, or your airtime, but you're not thinking that you need to invest. This is something that you must be able to correct, because to see a week where 115 million shares were traded but by foreigners, it begins to put a question mark. And I bring it to you. Are the foreigners seeing something that you're not seeing? And are you only focused on how much you are consuming as opposed to what it could mean for your future investments? We take this conversation once we come after the break. In terms of other activities we saw on the NSE, Bamburi Cement was one of them. We saw a bit of profit taking. The stock moved from 20, went all the way to 25.5, closed at 24.5. Not too many huge volumes, only huge volumes on 2 particular days, but there does seem that there could be a point of recovery on this particular stock. East African breweries at 168. We are seeing a bit of investor momentum in terms of looking at this counter, especially when we get to the point of a possible opening of the economy. A removal of the curfew would mean that the price goes up because the company can go back to selling beer. So if it's something that you are looking at, you probably have a week and a half before we get the next executive direction in terms of whether the economy will be open fully or not. Looking at the corporate events for the week ahead, the key thing that's coming out of our pod this morning, rather, is the Kenya Bankers Association will be having its annual research conference starting on the 23rd through to the 25th of this week. That's Wednesday through to Friday. They will be looking at different things and different themes that have been affecting the world globally as well as our world right here in Kenya. We'll keep you posted on any key tenets that we take out from this particular conference. But in general, some of the key themes that have been affecting the banking sector include non-performing loans, as well as the lack of goodwill for the banks to lend to the economies, and a raft of numbers that have been coming down, with the top-tier banks such as KCB having reported half-year numbers that were down 40%. Equity numbers down 23%, and the story continues. So we will be keeping our heads on this to see if there's any new direction from a regulatory perspective, from a body perspective, because Kenya Bankers Association really is the voice of the banking community in Kenya. We take a short break. When we come back, we are joined by Willis Nalwenge. Willis is a senior analyst at Kingdom Securities. We will be discussing what happened last week, as well as some of the key trade ideas we think you should be taking note of in terms of making money or avoiding losing money on the NSE this week. As always, we want to hear your thoughts. Our SMS line is 20146. Alternatively, you can reach out to me on Twitter or any other social media platforms. My name and my handle is Mbithe Mwema. If that doesn't work for you, Metropole TV is also reachable to you, and we want to hear your voices, your comments, and engage with us so that we can know how we can be of service to you in terms of bringing the latest investment news your way. We take a short break. I will see you in a few.